Hi. What is your name and job title, and how long have you been working with trampolines?
Okay, so my name, let me think. Yeah, all right, I do know what it is. Keith Alexander is my name. I've been working on trampolines probably since about 1998. So it's quite a long time now.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you know why you started doing like trampolines?
Yeah, that's a good question. Why would I want to do that from 1998 up to now? Well, when I was about 11, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, they had trampolines, but it was only in gymnastics clubs. They were very expensive, and you had to be going for the Olympics or something like that to have a trampoline. But I thought it was so cool because you could get really high, and I loved the idea of flying. I had model aeroplanes and things. So I wanted a trampoline when I was young, but we couldn't afford it. But when I got older and got married, and we had a daughter, I thought, wow, now I could buy a trampoline for my daughter, and then I can jump on it myself. So I told my wife, we're going to get a trampoline for Katie. She's 2 years old now. She should be old enough. My wife said, no, they're too dangerous. And we had a bit of an argument over it. And then I thought, well, I'm an engineer. Maybe I should be able to do something about this. Maybe I can design a better one. So that's really the background to how it started.
That's very cool.
Can you ask him? He said he was an engineer, so that means before he did trampolines, what was his job? Will you ask him that?
Yeah, what was your job like before you did trampolines?
Right, I had quite a few jobs. The first job I really had was working in a little workshop. And then I learned how to be a teacher. And so I was a school teacher for 3 years. And then I decided teaching wasn't for me at all. So I went to university and got a degree, and then did some research and got a PhD, and then did some engineering. And so I was an engineer for a while. And so what was the question? Why did I choose?
To do trampolines.
Trampolines, yes, that's right. So I was an engineer, and I was married, and then in my spare time, I started working on a safer trampoline because I thought I could do that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
You can say no, and you can ask it again. You're the boss here.
Well, it does though. So, what motivated you to make it like safe and add safety features?
Well,
Yeah, what safety features?
Yeah. That's so. I wanted to make a safer trampoline, but trampolines weren't too bad then. I mean, they weren't all that good, especially because my wife said that they were too dangerous. So I thought maybe I can make it safer. So I started thinking about the things that might make one safer. And the specific things that made it safer. Well, I thought that the edge of the trampoline was the most dangerous part at the time. I thought there's a lot of trampolines, especially in New Zealand, with just steel bar around the edge and all the springs there, and you could land on them, and there was nothing covering them to stop you hurting yourself. And I thought, now that's the most dangerous part. So I started thinking, if I could make the edge soft, I mean, like a sofa, you can bounce on a sofa, but it doesn't have a steel bar there that you'd fall on. So why can't I make a trampoline like that? So I was thinking about making a trampoline like that to make it safer. And then I was also found out later on that one of the worst injuries you get is if you fall off onto the ground and you land on a bicycle or something like that. That's the most serious injuries on trampolines. So I thought, well, really, we need a net. And there were nets around, but they just kept falling apart and falling off. You didn't have to have a net at all. But I thought, if I'm going to make a trampoline and make it safer, it's going to have a net as part of it. You have no option. You have to have a net. So that was two things I did is I made a soft edge, and then I put a net on it. And the third thing that I made it safer by was the nets and the pads. They still fall off. They might last 3 years now. They used to last only, well, less than a year quite often. But now you can probably be sure they'll last a year. They might last 3 years. But on the trampoline that I wanted to make them last longer. So on a Springfree trampoline, they last probably 10 years at least.
That's very
So
cool.
that was a long answer.
Thank you. Do you know, like, if you've created a new type, and do you know what the type is made? Like, what's the name?
Sorry, I didn't quite get that. So a new type of trampoline?
Yeah. And
Well,
tell me the name.
Yeah, I made about 3 different ones just in my spare time before I was working at the university. Three different ones. I can show you if I can share the screen. I can show you here. Anyway, so here's a little model that we made. This, believe it or not, is supposed to be a trampoline. And let me show you. So if I push this here, you can see my fingers bouncing. So really what I wanted to do is to make a trampoline based on this idea. This is like one line across the top of the trampoline. And you can't really bounce on one line, so you have to repeat this right around in a circle. So that was one trampoline that we made, and I could show you pictures of that if I can share screen. Can I share a screen, Nolan?
I think
You should be able to, yes. And if not, I can share mine on my end.
All right, let me just see if I can share. We do a bit of technology stuff here, okay? This is exciting. So I press share screen, and then I choose which screen. So what have you got there? What can you see?
I see the things, like the thing that you just showed me on the top, and then
Yeah, that's right.
water on the bottom.
And on the bottom, on the left-hand side at the bottom, there's a little girl jumping on. That's what the trampoline looked like. So it had a mat across the top, and it had walls down the sides. So just like that model one that I showed you, it had a wall down the sides. And then there's a picture over at the bottom to the right, which shows it's labeled parts. And then I'm just zooming up, looking underneath it. This is what it looked like underneath. You had all of those springs there and rods. It was really complicated, and that made it very expensive. And it made it, well, it wasn't very bouncy. In that picture there, that little girl is jumping really hard. It looks as if she's happy, but she's jumping really hard, but she can't get very high because it wasn't a very good trampoline. So is that the sort of thing you wanted to know, a different sort of trampoline?
Yeah.
All right, well, I can show you the other one. So if I go down a little bit there, this is the one that you've got, but the same sort of pictures. So at the top left here is the very first one that I ever made of that sort. And it's got kebab sticks here. Do you know what a kebab is?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's got kebab sticks here, and it's got some very bad sewing on the top. But if you could drop a golf ball on the top of that, it would bounce. So that was when I wasn't sure whether this would work. So I made that little model one. And on the top right here is a picture where it's partly cut away so you can see the pieces. And then on the bottom left here is the very first one that we could make that you could actually jump on. You couldn't jump on the one up above because it's too small, but this one here is about 8 feet across. And you could jump on that one, and now they look like this. That's what your one looks like. Is that right?
Yeah.
Something like that, but I bet the legs are different. Are the legs like that, or have they got a single pole up the middle?
Single pole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how do I get out of share screen, Nolan?
You should be able to say stop sharing, and maybe I can actually
That's
let me
right.
take it
I can do it. Let me try.
take it over. Okay, did that work?
Here we go.
All right.
Right, so there's
There we
two types of trampoline that I made that you've seen. What's your next question?
How do you think that trampolines have like changed or evolved over time?
A lot. On my answer to your question, I have to have a look here. How have they changed? Well, as I said before, they used to just be gymnastic equipment, and now you can buy them. So they've got cheaper and smaller, and you can buy them. So that's a big change. Also, they used to always be like gymnastic ones. They're always rectangular. But now you can get rectangular ones, you can get square ones, octagonal ones, round ones, oval ones. So there's lots of different shapes. And originally there were no safety rules. I talked about that before, but then in 1975 they got some safety rules, and then 1988 they were getting lots of injuries because there was lots of trampolines being sold, and they were forced to have more safety rules. So the safety rules have come in and warnings have come in that weren't there before. As I was saying before, there's more and more of them sold. So back in 1970s, there were hardly any of them sold because they're too expensive. But in about 2008, I think is probably when they was selling the most, about 1.2 million trampolines a year in the US, sold in the US. So that's big change. So around somewhere about, say, 2006, that's when the most injuries were happening. It was about 100,000 injuries, people going to emergency departments in the United States. And that's gone down now to something like 64,000. So it's got a bit better, partly because there's not so many being sold. And one of the reasons for that is because they've got trampoline parks. Have you ever been to a trampoline park or trampoline court?
Yeah.
So back, I don't know, 15 years ago, there weren't many of those at all, hardly any. And now there's lots and lots of them, and there's lots of injuries happening at trampoline parks. And the last thing that I mentioned saying, there are small trampolines, usually called bouncers, and the rules don't apply to them. The rules only apply to bigger ones. So there's these little bouncers now appearing. They're really indoor trampolines, especially for places like China, where most people live in apartments. They can have a little trampoline for their little kids. So that's for little indoor trampolines, and they don't have any safety rules yet. And because there's injuries, people falling off them and hitting their head on the piano or something like that, they're getting more safety rules around those. But so there's a lot of changes about trampolines. Did you want to know all of that, or was that just too much?
That was good. What are the pros and cons of having a trampoline? Like, pro would be like it can help you with exercise, or con could be like it doesn't have enough safety features. What are like one pro and one con?
Only one.
I don't know.
As many as you'll get.
More? Okay, so I've got a list here. So the pros of having a trampoline as well, you can jump on it and have fun. And you can exercise. You can also develop your skills. So if you become really good on trampoline, maybe you join a trampoline club and you can that's where you can do flips when you're taught to do it properly and safely and so on. And whether your parents like it or not, you'll be pushing the limits, seeing what you can do, trying all sorts of things on a trampoline that you don't want anyone to watch you doing because they might say stop. So that's all the pros of a trampoline. And then what about the cons?
The cons?
The cons, yeah, the things that are
bad things.
Possibly bad things. Well, if you get a cheap trampoline, it is likely to fall apart quite soon, say 3 years or less, it might fall apart. And then it's dangerous. And one of the worst things that I found from the research is that because the pads fall off, and they're not replaced, that makes the trampolines more dangerous. So that's the one of the cons is if you have a cheap one, they fall apart and they're still there without the safety features in place. For all trampolines, one of the cons is it takes up space in your backyard. So if you've got a small backyard and a big trampoline, you don't have any backyard at all except the trampoline. Another one is, and if you look at my trampoline now, in the fall, it collects a lot of leaves. So you've got to be sweeping the leaves up. Or if you're in Canada, it collects a lot of snow. So you can get a ton of snow on the trampoline, which can stretch it. Typically, and it's here in New Zealand as well, it's hard to move them around. When you're mowing the lawns, you can't move them around. You can't be bothered, so the grass grows long underneath. And one of the disadvantages that's quite fun sometimes for some people is that when there's a strong wind, the trampoline can blow away. And there's all sorts of trampoline adventures when the trampolines are blown away. And there's some videos online of them just taking off and disappearing over the hillside. So there's some pros and cons. They can get blown away.
Maddie, you didn't ask about stress. Do you want to ask about that?
Yeah. What are some health benefits of jumping on trampoline? Like, do they help with like stress for people that have mental disorders?
Health benefits, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, it was just, it got a bit jumbled when it came across. Well, the health benefits is that it gets you exercising and gives you a big buzz because you can get high. It's quite exciting. But the exercise, large muscle exercise, is good for getting fit. That's one of the best things about it. And you asked about stress, I think, before. Does it help with stress? And I suppose you mean your mother's stress or your stress? Because I know lots of mothers are saying, get outside and get on the trampoline because they're stressed and pissed off. Okay, is that the sort of thing you mean? And then because you've been told off, you run outside and you get on the trampoline and you jump really hard for a while.
What do you mean?
So
I mean, like, so if you have like a mental disorder, like if you have like autism or ADHD, does it help like reduce stress if you like need a break from doing something that you're doing?
Absolutely, yes. There's quite a funny story to do with that. But certainly there's a lot of people who've got ADHD or they're autistic and they like trampolines because they like the rhythm. And we used to have, in the early days when we were still developing the Springfree trampoline in Australia, there was a boy called, I think, Ryan Storch near Brisbane. And he used to just destroy trampolines because he would jump on them every day. The parents came to Springfree and said, please, can you provide us with a trampoline that's not going to get broken? Because he was quite old. He was almost adult size, and he would just jump on the trampoline all day. And we used him a lot because we would go up and check on the trampoline because it was one of the best ways of testing our trampolines to see whether they were going to last, because he would do it 8 hours a day. And we had one funny little incident there because I'm the engineer, I said, well, we really need to be measuring how many jumps he does so that we can say, yes, it will do 2 million or 3 million jumps without breaking. So somebody said, oh, well, we'd put a pedometer on, one of these little things that you put on your belt and it'll count your steps. We could put one of those on the trampoline, then we could just, every time we came back, we'd see how many jumps had happened on the pedometer. But his mother said, no, you can't have anything like that because it's got numbers on. Anything with numbers on, he follows the numbers. And on his exercycle, he will sit on the exercycle and he will do a kilometre. And if he doesn't see the zeros come up, he won't get off. He'll keep going until the zeros come up because he just was so fascinated by the numbers. All right, so the answer to that is yes, there's some good benefits, especially for people with autism or that are OCD. Right, what's your next question?
Why do you like working in the trampoline business?
Why? Well, because the trampoline business is making the trampoline that I invented. That's one of the reasons. So that's an ego reason, it makes me feel good about myself. But another thing that is good about it is that I think I can make them safer, and I can monitor what's going on. And I've got a seat at the table, if you like, when they make the rules, because I'm helping to write the standards now. And that means not only do I make trampolines safer for kids because I'm selling my trampoline, but I can change the rules to make trampolines safer for everybody, not just the ones that buy my trampoline. And that means I think I'm being a big benefit to mankind. And no one will know because you can't count the injuries that don't happen. Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. What's your next question?
Could you tell me the funniest thing that has happened to you while you were working on trampolines?
Well, I couldn't think of the funniest thing, but there's one funny thing was I told you before about the wind.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the funniest things was somebody sent me a photo of a trampoline in the middle of a freeway in a windstorm. And it turned out that trampoline had gone over a mile. So it had flown for over a mile, plonked itself down in the freeway, and it kind of was sitting there looking like, anyone want to come and jump on me? I thought that was pretty good. I do have one photo that's like that happened in New Zealand. I couldn't find that photo. So I'm going to share the screen again and show you that photo. It's not a very good photo, but so have I got, where are we? Here. This screen. So the photo, here we go.
Oh my God. Do you see it, Maddie?
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, no, that was a Springfree trampoline that just, it hadn't gone a mile, not that one, but it had jumped over a high fence. So the wind was coming from right over here on the left side, and you can't see, but that's the Springfree Trampoline Company in New Zealand. And it has got a high fence there so people can't steal the trampolines, and it had got blown over the fence and onto the road.
It kind
So
of
there we are.
like on the right side of the trampoline, the blue thing, it kind of looks like it's paintbrush and somebody's painting the trampoline.
Yes.
This blue thing here.
Yeah.
That's a sign for, in New Zealand, you're supposed to be driving on the left side of the road, and that's a little arrow pointing to the left. So if you're crossing over the road there, it would show you where to go. You can see this car here is on the left side of the road, not like the right side in the USA.
Yeah.
All right, I'll cancel out of share screen again. Here we are. Look at that. Okay, what's your next question?
Do you see yourself working with trampoline for the rest of your life?
Well, if I died tomorrow, that'd be probably right, wouldn't it? Probably, but I get old and forgetful. But if I'm any use, I would like to keep working on trampolines as a sort of a hobby as I get older. But I might get bored with it sometime. I don't know. I haven't been so far. Whenever Nolan asks me to do something, I always end up doing more than he expects. So I guess I'm pretty happy with it and could see myself doing it for a long time, just depending when I die. Don't know.
Yeah. Is there anything that I've left out that you'd like to answer?
Yes, there is. So, and I'll show you a picture as well. So one of the things that I have found important, I've been a professor at university, and they don't just teach people, but they also do research. So I've done quite a lot of research into trampoline injuries and what they do. And is the Springfree trampoline actually a safer trampoline? We did measurements in the USA and found what the injuries were like there, and measurements in New Zealand and Australia and found what it was like there. and measurements of the Springfree trampoline. Just let me share screen again. Here we go, share, click. So we're there at the moment. Right. So can you see that picture there?
Yeah, the pie charts.
Yeah.
The pie charts, yes. So that is showing the difference between a Springfree trampoline injuries and ordinary trampolines. So on the left is a picture representing all the trampolines in the USA, and on the right here is this picture using representing just the Springfree trampolines. And the main difference is that if people are going to get injured on the trampoline, there's two ways to get injured. Basically, there's two ways. One is you bang into a pole or something that ideally should be padded, or you land badly on the mat. If you land and roll your ankle, or if you land and bend your finger back, I can't stop that from happening, because whatever you do on the trampoline, I can't control it as a trampoline designer. So that means in these pie charts, I've got the white part there is where people hurt themselves or they hurt each other, and I can't control that. So if you're on the trampoline with your brother or your friend and you knock your teeth out on his head, I can't stop you doing that. But if there's poles around the edge, or if the net's fallen apart or there's no net, that's something that I can, as a designer, do something about. So those are the coloured parts. So the coloured part is what I can do something about, and the coloured part over here is what all the trampolines in America could do something about. There's the equipment, the poles and things, and then there's falling off. So what I've shown here is that the proportion of injuries from the things that I can control, that is falling off, and the equipment, the poles and so on, Springfree trampoline's got a much smaller proportion of injuries from the equipment than all the trampolines in America. So I'm quite proud of that, because what that means is we've got rid of the sorts of injuries that we can control as engineers. It's up to you to control the injuries in this part here. So that was a bit complicated, but research can be complicated, and I just wanted to show it because I was very proud of it. Okay.
This is my last question. Is there a life lesson or something that I've left out that you've learned while working with trampolines?
Yes, I did make a little list of life lessons. If you get old, you've had lots of life lessons, whether you like it or not. So some of the things I learned for, where is it? Yeah. Because the trampoline project, I learned some specific things. I learned to have long-term goals and use them to help you make life decisions. So I had a long-term goal to make trampolines safer, because I just kept on thinking, well, I need to get one for my daughter, and I still haven't solved that problem yet. So I had a goal from 1989 through to about 1993, which is not very long, before I actually thought I'm going to really stick at this and keep going, and made several backyard trampolines that were soft edge, and it was all just a hobby. But because I stuck at it when I got my job at university, I used the university students to help. They came up with this little model that I showed you before. So that was a long-term goal that I just kept going with until I could get it to market. And there were a lot of things that got in the way. So that was one. Another one is, and this is where I was very lucky with the Springfree people, work with good people. People who are going to be reliable and that you respect. Work with good people. If they're not good people, if they lie to you and they get you into all sorts of trouble, change friends, go away somewhere else. So that's another one. And another one I learned with the trampoline project is your relationships with people are more important than making money. So even when I was trying to make trampoline early ones and had to pay for the pieces to get made, we didn't have the trampoline. We had to test it, and to test it, we had to make all the parts, and they were really expensive, and I had to pay for them, and I didn't have enough money, and so on and so on. It was more important that I looked after those people because they're still my friends, even after a long time. Okay, so good things take time. I suppose that's a summary. Good things take time, and always work with good people. Is that the sort of thing you wanted to know?
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions, Matthew?
No, that's the last one.
I think it's also interesting to know that Dr. Keith is not just a trampoline inventor. He's actually invented a lot of other different things in his time too. I don't know if you have any pictures, Dr. Keith, of like your walk-on water shoes or anything like that. But he's made some very interesting stuff. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that, but I always found that fascinating.
You want to see that?
Sure.
I'm not very prepared for that question. We did.
You don't have to show anything. It was more just the general knowledge of it.
Yeah, I enjoyed trying to do things that people haven't done before. And one thing that I was doing at university, when I was doing my PhD at university, I didn't have much money, and the local radio company had this competition for walking on water. So they just made it up. Yeah, and obviously from the rules that they came up with, they thought people were going to try and run really fast off the bank and splash into the water. And they're saying, and, you know, anybody getting more than 20 meters, and they changed the rules if you got more than 20 meters. Well, my PhD was making a little car that would run on the top of the water with its wheels. So I knew quite a lot about things going on the water. And walk-on water shoes was something that my father had been trying to make. So I was ideally set up for that competition. So I made some special shoes, went into the competition, won the competition, got $1,000. And back then, $1,000 was a lot of money, a lot more than it is now. That paid for about 3 months for me to be at university. So I funded myself through couple of years of university by winning walk-on water contests, because they had another one the next year, and then they had another one in another city. So I just kept winning them. It's not many people who fund themselves by walking on water. Thank you, Nolan.
And if you need any more ideas, like if you want to make another thing like walk-on water shoes, I have a couple things. Like maybe you can make shoes that extend your feet so you can walk on air like stairs. Like if you want to get so if you're too small to go on a ride, you can just use those shoes and go on the roller coaster. That'd be really helpful for some 3-year-olds.
What a good idea. I've always wanted to just sit up in the air and see what's going on down below, but everything that I think of for sitting up there makes a lot of noise. But I did go hang gliding when I was younger. I used to fly hang gliders, and it's very like just sitting or lying down. You're lying on your tummy and looking down at everything down below, and you think it must be wonderful, but when you're up there doing that, what you're doing is worrying about where you're going to land. Anyway.
Well, if you have any ideas, Matthew, send them over so we can send them over to Dr. Keys. I'm sure he wants to work on another project here pretty soon.
So I do like the air stairs idea.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just a little air ladder thing that you could do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like if you're in your kitchen and your kid is outside and you don't want them to get up from a couch, you can take one step up, and then you'll immediately be in the air and look and be, oh wait, yeah, I see what she's doing. Make sure she doesn't get hurt.
I think your mum might like one of those things because she can imagine her wanting to stop you getting hurt quite a lot.
Yeah.
We'll take a pre-order.
Very good, Matthew. Very good.